Welcome back to part 2 in our continuing series on Bloom, the fractal sequencer. Today we're going to get into the shift menu. We're going to go a little deeper with Bloom, and let me just step you through this patch. It's really simple. So I have one gate coming out, channel 1, into the trigger of Surface. Surface is a complete synth voice, so VCA and envelope are built in. And into the volt per octave of Surface, I'm coming out of channel 1 of Bloom. So then out of Surface into the mixer. With the send return through the mixer, I'm going through Prism. So I can turn up that send and return a little bit on each channel. And I've got time set really fast here on Prism, so it's giving us that little slap back. And just a little bit of filtering too. So let's just start by entering just a really simple sequence into Bloom, and you'll see that mutation and branches and path are all the way down. So I'll just enter a simple melody. So the first shift menu is length. I'll hold down shift and I'll turn length here. This lets you set the amount of steps you want. 1 step all the way up to 32 steps. There's 4 pages. So if you hold down shift and you keep turning this encoder, now we're into page 2. Now we're into page 3 and so on. So I'm just going to go all the way back to page 1. I'm just going to give us, let's do 6 steps. All right, you can see our 6 steps right here. And remember from video 1, a quick save, just to keep this, is to just go into channel 2, and then to return into channel 1. So our next shift menu here is scale. So if we hold shift, we can go through all the scales. We can go up to the first one, chromatic, major, minor, major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, harmonic minor, whole tone, and unquantized. So I'm going to go back to, let's go back to major. Next is order. So you can see it's playing forward. If I hold down shift and turn order, see it's in forward order. Now it's going backward. Pendulum, and of course random. I'm going to keep it in random order for right now. Let's do a little quick save. So our next menu is pattern, and this is where you can save and load patterns. It's a bank of 8 user-saved patterns that you can recall during a performance. So I hold down shift. And I'm going to choose this first position here. I'm going to hold down this for 3 seconds. You see it flash. And now it's saved into slot number 1. So let's turn order back on forward. Let's make a few changes. All right, we'll just go shift, and I'm going to save this into slot number 2. Hold down shift, hold down the encoder. There you go. So now, the way to load them is to hold shift, choose the pattern, and now just click it. And it was on random, right? And Now we'll go shift and we'll go to number 2. This one was going forward and it had those higher notes. Alright, so there's how to save and load. So there's something else, and it's so cool, and you don't even have to hold down shift. If you'd like to copy a pattern into another slot here, here's how to do that. So we have this one here on 1 with random, and then we have this one here on 2. So let's take that one, and just for fun, let's put them all the way down here on 8. So I'm going to select that pattern, which I know is on 2. Without holding down shift, I'm just going to hold this down and then click this. I deactivated that step there. Okay, so now if you go, I'll go back to number 1. Click that. There's pattern 1. So now if I go shift and I'm going to load that one way down on 8, which I saved, click. So there you go, I copied that pattern to position 8 here. Unlike the load and save functions, copy doesn't care which pattern you're on. And this helps with speeding up composition and performance, so you can copy patterns anywhere, anytime as you're playing. Alright, next up is divide and multiply, and as you would expect, it divides or multiplies the channel's rate from the primary internal or external clock. So today we're using internal clock. I've turned rate up here. So I hold down shift. So with the 2 dots in the middle, there's no adjustment to divide or multiply. But if I go into divide, it'll divide by 2, by 3, by 4, and by 8. Come on, 8. Okay. So here we are back to the original. And as you would guess, multiply does same thing. By 2, 3, 4, and 8. Something to note is when you're multiplying a channel's rate with an external clock source, Bloom needs 2 pulses from the external signal before advancing its sequence. Alright, let's move on to Slew. So shift and Slew. So when there's no LEDs lit, no slew is present. And I'll turn this up. When all the lights are lit, the maximum slew is applied. That's far enough. I'm going to turn that down. Alright, so we're going to get into per step slew here. So if I hold down shift and click on slew, it stops our sequence. And you can't hear surface because it's a full voice, so there's a VCA and an envelope here. But if this was a voice like chord, it would be droning right now. So you can hold trig just to trigger surface. And now it's per step slew. So we can add it here. Alright, we'll add a little bit on this one. Okay, maybe a little less. And now when I hit shift slew, it'll get back to our sequence. And you can hear slew just on those steps. So let's adjust a little bit less on that one. So shift, click, and let's take it down a little bit on this guy. Shift slew again. A little bit there, that's nice. So next is ratchets, and similar with slew, you can do it to the whole sequence or per step. So shift and ratchets. I'll go to 3. So every step now has 3 repeats. The amount of LEDs is the amount of repeats. So there's 2. So let's put this back down to none. That's just 1 hit now per step. So shift and ratchets, I'll click it. So now we're in ratchets per step. So let's take 3 and move that up to 2. Let's go to this one and move that up to 2, or let's put that one to 3. Okay, and then shift ratchets gets us back into play mode. And finally, we have notes. And this allows you to change the notes of your sequence without the sequence running. So again, if surface wasn't a full voice, it would be droning. So it's not, so I'm just going to trigger it by hitting trig. You can adjust each step. You can create your own melody. And then shift notes, and the sequence starts playing. Alright, I want to show you something really cool about per step edit mode. Alright, so we're going to change our steps here. So you see we have 6 steps here. And we're just on the first page of steps. Because remember, it's a 32 step sequencer. So I'm going to add a few more steps. So I'm going to hold down shift and length. I'm going to take us into the second page. Watch that LED right there. So I'm going to give us 4 more steps, total of 12. Into page 2, and you can see those LEDs changed. Page 1 and page 2. Just got those extra 4 there. All right. So I want to edit those steps. So I'm going to go into Note Edit Mode, Shift and Notes. So we're on page 1, but I'd like to adjust those steps on page 2, right? So in Step Edit Mode, like we are now, per step mode, I'm going to hit Reset, and see that puts us into page 2. And so now hitting Trigger, can edit those notes a little. And if I want to loop this page and just hear it, I can hit channel. Now it's playing these other notes on the page, but we know that our sequence only has those 4. And if you want to hear your other pages, you just hit reset. See, now we're on page 3, page 4. We're back to page 1. And it just stays on page 1, looping it. The channel stops it again. And then to exit out of per step mode, shift notes. It takes us back to our sequence of 2 pages. You can follow along with the pages right there. 8 steps here and 4 steps there. And look how much fun we've had without even using branches or paths or mutation. Amazing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next and last video in this series on Bloom. We'll use all the things we've learned and we'll get into some pretty creative patching. We'll see you there.